Skyward Sword is a game made by game devs that didn't know how to evolve and move their series on. And it shows. From the kind of awkward controls all the way to the blatant disrespect of your time. But the game has a lot of redeeming qualities that will keep you playing. And in this video, we're going to go over them. So subscribe and welcome to the show. Okay, so the first redeeming quality really is the story. It has beautifully animated cutscenes that at the end of the day have some of the prettiest cinematography in the Zelda series. And it will hook you. From the very start it gives you motivation, because within the first hour of gameplay there's a beautiful scene where Link and Zelda are at the top of the goddess statue, and it gives you a reason why Link cares so much about Zelda, which captivates you for long periods of time and keeps you playing. As well as this, the environmental storytelling is top notch. There is one dungeon which is based on travelling between heaven and hell with a spider's thread from their web, that's based on a Japanese story where a man is seen at a lake of hell and a goddess takes a shine to him and lowers down a spider thread for him. He then proceeds to climb, and then other people start climbing as well. So the thread snaps due to all of the greed that was happening, throwing away these people's chances to climb and return to heaven if they had have all worked together. And this is shown as bokoblins try to stop you from getting back up, and there's dead, deceased bokoblins that are trying to kill you in hell. And then up at the top there's an oriental sort of Buddhism feel to it, with giant statues with swords and beautiful dragonflies all around the air, leading to a beautiful atmosphere that can send chills down your spine or make you feel warm inside. The characters here actually have depth, which is something completely new for Nintendo really, as they have long been championing gameplay as the thing that is there, and story just serves to motivate the gameplay. But in Skyward Sword, this is flipped on its head, meaning that the story is the main thing that you're here for. The gameplay is just there to make it flow and to have a way to move through the world and progress the story. This is shown in the characters really deeply. Take, for example, Goose. He started off being a competitor to Link, kind of a bit of a jerk, but by the end of the game, he has seen the error of his ways. He's become a lot more humble, but is still the same Goose. He's still kind of a lovable dummy, because at the end of the story, he calls it Gooseland, kind of being a little egotistical, showing he's still the same person. Showing Nintendo definitely well spent hours researching and tweaking this story, and this can be seen in the concept art. There's beautiful concept art of how they'd moved and tried to iterate on the series, and the way they focused on the story this time was a gamble that was worth taking. The plot of this game actually impacts the series as a wide range of things, giving deep backstories to elements we kind of took for granted. For example, the Sheikah. It shows us how the Sheikah came to serve the Hylian royal family, with the Sheikah being the people that the goddess chose to help and be her servants, the ones at her side, and leaving Impa to defend the gates of time. As well, there's other ways that this game has heavily impacted the series, like goddess statues and goddess Hylia. It's crazy to think that was only introduced in Skyward Sword. The last game opposed to Breath of the Wild. It's mad, because that feels like a core element that's been around for ages, even though it's only really been in 2 games. As well as this, there's other great ways that it impacted the story. For example, paragliding. Paragliding is a version of the sailcloth mechanic that was introduced to stop you falling to your death when you jump down from the sky, whereas used more as a parachute in Skyward Sword, but in Breath of the Wild it's blown up in scale to be a parachute. You can just jump off in a way that feels awesome, and I find myself doing it in like Skyward Sword's engine and the N64 engine for Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. The game has iterated in other ways though, such as the item progression, where it's all about upgrading things the same way that Breath of the Wild handles clothing. Through upgrading to get new abilities, this has been used in Skyward Sword on not just clothing but the actual items of weaponry as well, as the fact that it just straight up improves the gameplay. It is highly rewarding and kind of addictive to go out and gather resources to bring them back to the shop where they'll upgrade your stuff to get better things. You can go back into the world to gather more resources, leading to a pretty awesome gameplay loop that could be more open-ended if it wasn't linked to a very strategic and linear game. If it was more open, then you would probably be upgrading for longer due to the gameplay loop. As well as this, the wind bellows are kind of like a beta version of the Korok leaf seen in Breath of the Wild, meaning it has impacted, but there's one way that Skyward Sword has impacted the Zelda universe more than any other Zelda game. Give you one word. Loftwings. Wait, that's 2 words. Oh well, whatever. And that's the video. Check out my Skyward Sword versus Breath of the Wild video, where I go over more points on why Skyward Sword is bad, if you want to see the flip side to this. So, that's the end of the episode, guys. See ya!